Hey there everyone, my name's Andrew and this is Canadian Starships. Welcome back to update number 6 on the Nova class Starship. Project time is ticking away. The contest deadline is coming up soon. End of July, July 30th is when it all has to be done. Pictures have to be taken and uploaded to the Facebook group for the contest. So the push really is on. And it's gotten really hot here in Kingston, Ontario. We live in an area of extremes. It gets very cold in winter and then super hot in the summer. Right now it's above 30 degrees Celsius, so we are kind of sweltering away, but fortunately I can get some cool air into the shop from the house if I leave the door open and a fan on. But it would be nice to have air conditioning out here, but that's not something that I have right now. So I want to let you know that in between updates, I was able to get the second pylon installed and they look really good as well. Okay, so where they mate to the hull doesn't look good right now. It's still really rough, but the level of the two pylons to each other looks really good. They look really matched up. That was a bit of a chore to get that to look right, but so the pylons are aligned. The nacelles are just pressure fit attached right now so I can work. They'll need to come off so I can do some other work on them, but they're there. They don't look right now because they're not permanently attached, meaning that they're not lined up, but we are making some good progress. Now, normally I would say this is what I want to get done in this update, but I'm not going to say that because I just want to try to get as much done as I can in this update. I'm not sure what that's going to be, but if I set some goals and then I don't get to them, I'm going to be a little bit disappointed. So we'll just see how far we can get in this update. So I'm going to show you the progress on those pylons, show you how those have been installed, and then we're going to move forward to refinement. So I'm going to have to refine the area where they join to the hull and a bunch of other refinement too. And then after that, I've got to do a little bit of work on the nacelles to get that second nacelle top painted. And I think after that, after refinement's done and that primer is on and light blocking is on that upper nacelle portion, then I think we're ready to do wiring for lighting, which is going to be something that's super exciting. And then once all of the lighting is done, then we can get the thing together. And that's when things will really come alive. But I don't know how much of that we're going to get done. I need to get as much of it done as possible because the contest deadline is coming up. So let's move over to the bench and I'm going to show you those pylons. Second nacelle pylon is installed. Went about doing it a little bit differently this time. I put a daub of epoxy in the front and on the back from the inside, placed it in and lined it up as best I could with the port side pylon. And they look pretty good. They look pretty well lined up. I'm quite happy with the way that they look. It's a little hard to tell on camera from the various angles that you can get, but if you line yourself up in person from behind, and actually these two windows sections here, one here and one over here, are a great way to make sure that they're actually lined up with each other. So if you look at them from the back, the pylons should be lined up in exactly the same spot. So they look pretty good. When I put something across the two, it is quite level. So I'm quite happy with that. All right, so I'm working on some of the refinement stages. I've gone through the part. You'll be able to see some spots here that I've added a little bit of epoxy sculpt in here. These parts were quite tricky to do. If you want to see how that was done, go and check out the replay of the live stream from Tuesday, June 23rd, and you'll be able to see me working on that. I'm currently just working on sculpting in some replacement areas for some bubbles on these fin areas, and this is really tricky. I've got this toothpick cut down to a really fine point. I've also done the initial work. Okay, there we go. The initial work on the seam for the junction of the pylons to the hull. So this looks really rough and really bad right now, but it is still very soft. It's going to need to harden overnight, and once this is hardened, I'm going to go over it with sandpaper, some fine wet dry sandpaper, and sand it down, smooth it out. I'll go over it and see if I need to do any additional fillings, and then it should, by the time it's done, look like the pylons are just one piece with the upper hull section. So I'm really pleased with how it's coming along, and it should look really good when it's done. Sanding on first round putty on the pylons is done. Also, I've made sure that the other areas that had some putty done have been sanded down. So the next step is to shoot this thing again with some gray primer, and that's going to reveal the next level of refinement that has to be done. So something happened. I was setting up to put some more primer on the pylon joints, the upper hull section. I had the ship on the painting stand. I was shaking the rattle can of primer, and somehow in that process, the ship went for a premature flight, landed on the floor, and I'm going to show you a picture of the damage. So the port nacelle pylon cracked. So now I've gone through the process of reattaching the, well, it didn't fall off. It cracked at the top and opened up. So I've secured that back. Now I have to go through the process of refinement on that port nacelle pylon all over again. Now, it's not all bad news. That does kind of make things take longer, but the starboard pylon is starting to look really good. So I'm really happy with the progress I'm making on that. I will show that to you as well, but it's just kind of disappointing that something like that has happened and it slowed down the progress. We're starting to get into crunch time, and these kind of setbacks are just a little bit infuriating, especially when you are directly responsible for the setback. It was my fault. Somehow I knocked it off and it went flying, hit the ground, and broke the pylon. So at this point, filming this, the countdown is on. I've got 21 days, 2 hours, 31 minutes to get this project done. Because on July 30th, the final pictures have to be uploaded for the contest. So I better get back at it. So here we have a look at the progress going on so far. You'll see it's really a tale of two sides of the ship. On the port side, you've got the piece that snapped, that broke, that's been repaired. On the starboard side, you've got the part that refinement has been moving forward on. So the starboard side really is starting to look like the pylon is melding into the ship. The port side has the first coat of putty since the repair. So that's going to need to be sanded down, primed, and then we'll see where we're at that point. So with that progress underway very slowly, I'm going to use the time where putty is drying, paint is drying, that kind of thing, to get started on some of the LED work on the bottom portion of the ship. So I should be able to get some of the interior window lighting in place. I should be able to get some of the deflector lighting in place. And I've also got to look at what I'm going to do for indicator lights, the red and the green, and any white lights. They're all going to be static lights, no flashing in this. Very simple light setup. So I'm going to start working on the lighting system, which is exciting to get going on. Let there be light. Well, hopefully there will be some light. I have started working on the internal lighting, that which I can do on the bottom section, since I'm still working on refinement on the upper section. So I've got these LED strip sections going here. Essentially, I'm using these 3 LED long sections and just placing them around the inside to get a good lighting setup for the windows. Then I have I've got to double check my research, but I've got a blue LED that's going to be attached to the deflector dish here, and it'll be all light blocked so that it's not leaking back into the inside of the model. I'm going to have to do something for the deflector dish up top. Again, I'm going to need to do a little bit of research. Have to figure out what I'm going to do about the running lights and take a little bit of look back at the episode, see what's going on there. But everything is just going to be running into one circuit back down into the base. I'm not doing any flashies, any spectacular lighting, just a kind of a basic setup here on this model. It's a very small model, so there's not a whole lot that I'm going to be doing with this particular kit lighting wise. So I am just working on hooking up these LED strips, and I'll get them test run overnight if I can get them put together to make sure that they are all working, that I don't have any chipsets fail on me. And yeah, the lighting is starting to progress. Here's a quick look at the LED strip wiring. On each of these sections of 3 that I'm doing, there are 2 very small mounting points for the wires, negative, positive. And what I am doing to get as good a connection, lifetime connection as I can get, I'm not connecting the wires directly to the surface. If you can kind of see this one here, or actually probably even better, this one here where you can see a bit on the side, I am drilling through the connecting point here so that I can actually get the wire through a hole in the mounting post. And then the wire is being brought through, bent back, and it'll get soldered both to the connection on the LED tape and to itself, top and bottom, and then it'll get covered with shrink wrap. Individual pieces of shrink wrap over the exposed wire to keep any shorts from happening, and then a larger piece of shrink wrap over the whole unit to keep it all protected. 4 small sections of LED lights are wired and ready for soldering. Now that's not going to happen tonight. It's getting a little bit late, but they are ready to go, which just means I'm going to have to do a test run on them at a later date. I do like to let them run for quite a while to make sure that they don't fail. What I am going to do before I call it quits tonight is throw a little bit more primer in on that deflector dish. The area that's not masked off needs to be fully light blocked, and when I put the LED blue ball behind there just to see what was going on, I was seeing a lot of light leaks. So I've got the extra portions masked off to avoid overspray, and I'm just going to try to shoot some primer in there, give it a bit of a better coating before I call it a night. This might look like a jumbled mess, but this is the LED strips taped in place where they're going to go, and what I need to do is cut the extra wire off and get all of these wires connected to one single lead, which will then connect to the main power lead going to the base. So they're just taped in place so that I can find out exactly what length of wire I'm going to need, and they're all going to be kind of brought together in this central area, which will then be added to the main lead. I need to get these all connected together so I can do the overnight test run of the LEDs to make sure that nothing is going to go wrong, that they will not die, because I don't want to crack open the model to replace lighting. You can see that the LED strips have now been removed from the model, and you can see the outlines of the areas where they are to go inside the model, and they've been transitioned in approximately the same configuration onto a small cutting mat. Now I'm going to splice together the positives and the negatives to a common lead so that that can then be wired into the main leads going down to the base. Well, my first attempt at connecting all of the LED strips didn't work. I didn't leave anywhere near enough wiring, and one of the units actually broke when I was trying to strip a very short piece. So on to round 2, attempting to do this. I'm going to be leaving much longer leads, and I tried connecting them all up to a single lead altogether, so I'm going to have to step it down just for the flexibility of the wire in that space. So I've got 4 new LED strips cut, and these two, the first two that are going to be on the outside of the essentially the saucer section, are wired up. I've also wired them up reverse from each other so that they can easily come together in the middle. So yeah, they're all soldered up. Next, I'm going to start the shrink wrap. Port and starboard main LED strips are installed. Well, they're not installed. They are mocked up, but the wiring is done. Just going to point out a few things. I don't really have a pointer, so I'll use my number 11 blade. They are soldered to the points. They are drilled through so that they are securely anchored. Then there is shrink wrap right at the solder point. Now, in most cases, I would put another larger piece of shrink wrap over top of that, much like, let's see if I can grab this here for you, much like how this one here has been done. So there's a large piece on the outside which is anchoring it to the LED strip itself. But on this particular type of LED tape, there's not really much of a lip here for that. And I'm going to be epoxying these things down, so there's going to be nowhere for these to wiggle once this is installed properly. And then there's a band of shrink tube here just to keep the two wires together, so same on the other side. And then it's reduced down to 1 cable here, and the appropriate levels of shrink tubing here to protect everything and keep everything well secured. So now I need to move on to doing the engineering section LED and the middle saucer LED, and figure out just the best way to reduce those down to a single lead. It may be hard to really see what's going on here, but this is the entire main internal lighting for all of the windows for the ship. And it'll make a little bit more sense once it's laid out in the ship, but you've got your port, starboard saucer, and your middle saucer, and then this one over here is the engineering section light, and everything's been hooked up and reduced down to 1 lead per positive and negative, which will then be attached to the lead heading down to the power source in the base. Let's light this thing up and make sure it all works. Of course, it's blowing out the camera a little bit because I need to work on the manual camera settings, but it works. This has to sit overnight to make sure that everything works properly and does not die. Now that the main body lighting is done, I'm working towards the indicator lights on the ship, so the navigation lights, that kind of thing. And I am looking at some reference. So I'm going to the Trek Yards page, to the Trek Yards YouTube page, because they've just recently done an updated video on the Nova class project, and they have some of the actual renders of the ship and some newer ones based on the original render or CG model for the show. So you can't get much more accurate than that as far as I can determine. So from what I've been able to see, there's your standard green and red. So back of warp around this area here somewhere, top and bottom. There's a white light here, a white light up front, which is kind of aimed down at the registry. Not sure I'm going to be able to pull that one off, but we will see. Maybe we will play a little bit of creative license in the placement of that particular light. Then, just a little bit further down, there's another view. No red and green on the bottom of the warp nacelle, but there's a white here. There are green and red. On the underside, there's also a little bit of detail where those navigation lights go. That's not molded into the kit, so I'll have to deal with that. And let's get this view. This shows, again, the same thing. So just the light underneath the tail and those indicator lights. Also, I've done some good resource gathering on the deflector dish. So the deflector dish is actually a solid copper color, and the blue is splashing on everything behind it. So a little bit different than what I originally thought, but I've already kind of figured out a way I'm going to do that. So where is, okay, and here is the top of the ship. So again, there's the indicator lights and the one in the center. So to do these, I would have previously done fiber, but fiber is really hard to get in some of the tight places with bending and heat molding corners and stuff like that. So I am moving to these. I don't even know if the camera's going to. Let me see. I don't even know if the camera's going to focus on that, but that is a very, very tiny SMD. I can't even remember what number SMD that is, but that is the smallest micro LED I could possibly find. And so I'm going to drill the holes where they need to go on the various locations and insert this micro SMD. It's minuscule, and I will drill a hole. I'll probably light block the hole so that light from the SMD doesn't splash into any of the other parts of the plastic. We'll see. We'll see how close they are to any of the windows, especially the colored ones. The white ones, I don't mind. Some light splash, it's just the green and the red. And I might dim those down to the point where they wouldn't really go too far, spreading on the inside of the clear resin. So I'm working out what resistors I want to use to get the right look, because I don't want them to be too bright. One of the issues with lighting is scaling, and these are small indicator lights. They're supposed to be there, but they're not supposed to light up the room, right? So I think this particular one I've got in my hand right now is a white, and I think I've got a really nice kind of balance there with the resistor I've chosen. Where it's on, you can definitely see that it's a light, but it's not casting a bunch of light there. These things do go quite bright, so if I'm looking at doing the registry light, perhaps I can go a lot brighter with a lower capacity resistor, and that might just light up the registry area quite nicely, because that's definitely what this light here is doing. And I don't know if I'll be able to get it right on top of the ledge and get it to light up that registry correctly, but I will see what I can do. We might just take a little bit of artistic license and put it down a little bit on this slope, just so that it shines properly on the registry. We'll just have to see how that goes. So I am going to start working on those, especially since the other lighting that I have to do needs to burn in overnight. So that's going to be it for this update. As it stands right now, I have 16 days left. 16 days left to get this project done. We are seriously in super, super crunch time. So next update, number 7, will be the last build update for this project, because it has to be done by July 30th. So there might be a finished product video following that, but as far as the build of the project, that's going to be it after update number 7. And there's just so much still left to cram in. All the lighting has to be finished. All the refinement has to be finished. The two halves have to go together. This major seam has to be done. And then all of the painting and decals on the outside need to be taken care of. I don't know how I'm going to get this done, but I'm going to do my very, very best to get it done. So just a quick note about what's going to happen following July 30th. Once I have this project done, I will be cleaning the studio and getting it all set up again to return to the enterprise E project, because that is still on the go and we have a ton of work to do on that. So as soon as this project is done, I'm going to be cleaning up the studio because it is about as messy as it ever gets in here right now, and getting it ready to work back to the Enterprise E project. Also, in August at some time, following the completion of the Nova class project, I'm going to be doing a bit of a special video. On Saturday, I was at my parents' place with my family, and I went up to the attic to retrieve old model box tops of all the models I did when I was younger, and I was able to retrieve those. But because I was going up there, my parents wanted me to take down all the boxes I had up there, and I found a whole pile of Star Trek stuff from when I was a kid and when I was a teenager. So in August, once the Nova is done, I'm going to do a special video where I show you the really cool things that I found in my parents' attic that I used to have when I was a kid and a teenager that got packed away and forgotten about for 20 years. More than that. I'm gonna be 40 in just a few weeks. That's crazy. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this update, and I hope you've really been enjoying this project as it's been going on. Again, really cram-packed full, and I've got 16 days of madness coming up, and that's gonna be nuts. But if you've enjoyed this update video, please make sure that you hit that like button. If you're new to my channel or you haven't done so yet, why not hit that subscribe button today? You'll make me very happy if you do. But for now, this is Andrew. This has been Canadian Starships. Have a great day, everyone.